Hello and welcome to another episode of Shampoo and Booze. This is episode number 3.
And so today we actually happen to be in Amsterdam.
As Airbnb guests.
Right, we live in America and we're traveling it's this month.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I guess we wanted to talk today about Airbnb, the difference between, being a guest, being an owner, or a host. And then also now that we are hosts, being a renters or as guests, how we see things.
Now, I do want to say that even before we were hosts, I think we were pretty picky about spaces, depending on where it is, how much you pay, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, right. That was actually, our experience with Airbnb at first was as renters.
Right. For years, we rented on Airbnb.
Yeah, and because we travel a lot to work, and so we like to stay in neighborhoods because we like to go do our work, but then stay a longer period of time.
Right.
Since we're in a cool place.
And part of it too is we really love being able to cook, because a lot of times when you're in a major city in the world like Amsterdam, if you eat out all the time, it gets super expensive. It can get pretty expensive. So we're like, I want to make a sandwich. I want to fry up an egg. So that's always important.
Yeah, I think for us, what we like to do when we go somewhere new is maybe it's different than the normal way that other people do it. We like to go somewhere and find a home.
Right.
And we like to feel like we're at home. And we like to stay long enough for either 1 to 3 weeks in a place and just feel like we're just hanging out, where we aren't rushing around trying to have a list of things we're trying to accomplish every day. Check. We're more just I want to be able to spend a whole day where I'm just reading a book.
Right. Or going down to the cafe and doing work. I think also the difference between us and people who are tourists, I guess. I mean, we are tourists because we don't live here. You know what? We were talking to this lady in the airport who lives here and in the United States. And she's like, oh, you have to go visit this other city and pay for the walking tour, and there's this museum. I'm like...
And hop on one of those...
the tour cruise buses.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny because, of course we were like, oh, great, thanks so much. That's so cute. I'm like, I would never do any of those things. Right. Those things are so boring to me.
Yeah. And a lot of places we go, we have friends there, so we're really just kind of hanging out. It's with our friends, and they recommend things to do. When we try and rent a place on Airbnb, that's what we try and look for, is a place where we can feel at home, where it's got a nice kitchen. We avoid places where it's more like a hotel room, and I find that that's starting to become kind of popular on Airbnb. Is that people are making places that are just a hotel
like hotels,
room, where there's a bed, there's a little tiny table and a chair, and then there isn't even a kitchen. It's more like a sink, a microwave, and maybe a toaster.
Right.
And so it's not really enough to cook a meal properly.
Or scramble eggs, just to do a basic hot something.
Yeah.
So we're a little bit different like that, where we're super frugal. We're totally easily amused. If there's a coffee shop with Wi-Fi, we're like, great, that works for me. Cool. I'll people watch all day. That's what we love to walk around cities. We'll go places and people are like, oh, what did you do? And we're like, we just walked around for 2 days. That's fun to us, So it was interesting getting here because we rented an apartment from 2 people who are not professional Airbnb people. Right. So that's the first thing we should say.
It's kind of like the early days of Airbnb.
Right.
These people just are going, they went on holiday.
Right.
And they just wanted to rent their apartment so they could make some extra cash.
Yeah.
So they actually put it up for really cheap compared to the area. Amsterdam is now on Airbnb is very, there's all these places that are basically hotel rooms.
Yeah, right.
That people are making a living on, so the prices are really high. So we found this place really cheap. It's awesome.
Most of the prices, I would say, for a small studio type thing is between $150 and $199 a night.
Right.
For us, we're possibly staying for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So to look at the prices on those, we were like, Oh my God. Right. What? That's crazy.
But I mean, even though compared to a hotel, even those prices are good. But we found a place that was great, $80 a night. It was
80. Now here's the crazy thing. We had a very specific set of dates, and you were like refreshing the page, and all of a sudden you were like, "What is this?"
Right.
Oh my God, we have to get this apartment.
Well, sometimes you have to treat Airbnb like we do. It's Craigslist,
right?
Or it's just something where I just have a page open, and every time I'm at my computer, it reload and see if there's it's new inventory on there. And so it worked out.
So the good thing about that is it's cheaper. They happen to be in one of the fancier neighborhoods in Amsterdam that's right in the center of town.
Yeah, it's called the Nine Streets.
The Nine Streets. I'm not going to try to say it in Dutch again. Yeah. I've said it before.
It'd be like staying in Soho.
It'd be like staying in Soho.
In Manhattan.
Yeah, so. It's like Soho.
So we lucked out.
I mean, when I walk out the door to go places, it's almost like a little bit too fancy. I'm like, oh, this place is posh, but I don't know. They happen to live here, you know. Right. But so the second thing is, it's definitely someone's house. So when we're here, like, obviously their stuff is everywhere. I don't care about their stuff, but like, there's no place to put our clothes. Like, they didn't clear out. Like, our clothes are on the floor. Right. And in windowsills.
I mean, so I guess what we wanted to talk about was it is interesting on Airbnb that it's difference between hosts that do it for a living and full time because they have a whole structure and they have a format and it probably works very well. It's interesting. Right. It was like a first timer because we showed up. There was a friend was supposed to meet us, a friend of the hosts, and he didn't meet us. He was sleeping, so we had to like call and text trying to wake people up to allow us in. Yeah. And and like as Ryan said, they did clean up. It's nice. I love it. I'm not complaining. But it's different staying in someone's home where their stuff is everywhere. Yeah. Versus if you stay in a place where that's meant for you.
Right. It's very different. Yeah. And I will say it definitely is one of those experiences where you're like, oh, this is the Airbnb of 2009, where your host's friend partied, and we could see when he was last seen on WhatsApp. Like if you've ever used WhatsApp, it's a texting app. It shows the last time you were online. It was 4 a.m. And we were like, oh, he's definitely asleep. Right. Even though we confirmed with him the night before, please meet us at this time. So that was super frustrating where you're like, we waited for an hour and a half on the street.
But the good thing is, I think that's why, people that want a hotel experience, you need to go to a hotel.
You pay that.
We loved it. We just went to a cafe across the street. I was just trying to wake people up on the phone while we were having a nice coffee. Yeah. And it was fine. The experience we get is worth any kind of like kooky headaches. If I feel like a host isn't doing something because they're super lazy or crazy or something, I kind of just suck it up. I'm just like, oh, it's a foibles of humans. Right. I mean, it happens,
Foibles? That's an amazing word. Yeah. I mean, the other thing too was about that whole experience where like, these are not professionals. Yeah. Like if that were a professional like setup, that's a different. I'm like, these are people who subletted their apartment while they went to Greece. Right. Like, thank God they did because we could actually afford it.
But we it's mentioned it in one of the earlier podcasts. But staying as a guest in other people's Airbnb places is awesome. It's for us. I think it's what prepared us to run our own Airbnb.
Absolutely.
I mean, even though we pick places apart, we never really complain. Like, we don't leave bad feedback for people. I mean, we never have. But we always, like, give people a paragraph.
Of feedback.
Privately. That you can do and just tell people what we would do differently. And those are things that then we instituted in our own Airbnb.
And I would have to go back and look at our profile and see how many Airbnbs we stayed in. We stayed in a lot. And, like the one we stayed in last year in Amsterdam, they didn't have a soap dish, like in their shower. So, which is funny because they don't have one here either. So, like, you're using a bar of soap and you just have to put it on the floor.
Right.
And it turns into goo and you're like, oh, this is really nasty. So I remember last year we were like, you need a soap dish.
Yep.
You need to clean out your shower drain.
Yep.
Like, but people expect that stuff, like basic things like that. But that being said, all those tiny little experiences that we had, like, I'd love a place to put my clothes away because I'm staying here for 14 days. I don't want to just, like, live out of my bag. Taken care of at our house. Like, there's so many places to put your clothes.
Right, I mean, we have a place, where they can put them in under the bed and
there are drawers under the bed.
But then our big thing, which we love ourselves, are hooks. So
we have hooks everywhere.
We have hooks on both sides of the bed because that's what we have at our house. I don't like to fold everything. I like to just put stuff on hooks that I'm wearing.
If I have a jacket or a sweatshirt and I'm like in the city, I just want to like put my jacket on.
But even like shirts and pants, like I'll wear a pair of pants like 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to have to fold it up and put it on.
Like, if people look at pictures of our house, we don't link to it on the blog, but if you email us, we'll give you a link. I mean, every room has hooks on the back of all doors. The bathroom has hooks on the back of the door and on the wall. It's like everywhere. Yeah. I love them. I love hooks.
So it's cool though. I mean, that's the other thing. We've talked about. We run an eBay business as well, but adding Airbnb to this, our income is really kind of stabilized, and I really like Airbnb has really helped our income. We now depend, like we kind of started this business, as an experiment. Let's see if we can make it work. And since March, we're kind of depending on this income now, and it's really giving us a lot more freedom, like what we're doing now. Being able to stay here for 3 weeks.
And part of that too is, not to get too nerdy about eBay here, but on eBay when we go away, we change our handling time.
Right.
So we're going to be away for 30 days. Right. So I had to change our handling time to 30 days. That kills your sales. Yeah. I mean, your sales are like, but right now, because it's August, September, that's a huge tourist time in our area. So we're like, great, I'm so glad we're not going to be broke this month.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It seems like online there's this big thing about passive income. There's all these like popular blogs and podcasts about
gurus.
Like people are looking like, how do I make money without having to actually do anything? And we aren't those people because we actually do work, and each day we're still kind of handling things and managing things.
Yeah.
But like with our Airbnb business, this is kind of a big experiment for us because we have a friend back home who is managing our Airbnb while we're gone, our farmhouse.
And we're paying him.
Yep. We're paying him 20% of our
the
profits.
bookings. Yeah.
And and that means he has to clean when someone checks out, and then it's meet the person,
the next people checking in
when they check in,
and be on call,
and to be on call if there's any kind of problem. And he's a good guy, and so it's working, but it is still managing because every day I'm going online and I'm communicating with the next person coming to stay to make sure they come when they say they're going to come, to set expectations that we won't be there. Then I give that information to our friend who's I'm managing. I tell him how many people are going to come, if there's any dogs, what time they're coming, that kind of thing. Yep. So it's not like we have a life where we just like check our bank account. Oh, look, all this.
Yeah.
We're daily still have our hands on everything.
And you know what? I really feel like the businesses that we run, we have like 3 businesses now. Those details are super important to be hands-on like that, because I've heard of other people who are like thinking that Airbnb or rentals or whatever are passive income, and I'm like, if you skip a detail and forget that these people need to check in at 8 p.m. rather than 3, and then your friend is like, what's going on here? You're messing with people's schedules, and those tiny details, actually they're not tiny, they're big details, make a huge difference in how your business comes off, whether you come off as professional or like these people that we experienced yesterday.
We're going to interview a friend of ours here in Amsterdam who kind of manages some Airbnb properties for other people.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to kind of hear his experience, because I guess what these people own apartments that they don't use, and what they do is, and I think this is common now, they give that inventory to like our friend, or to like a management company, or to a guy that has like 18 apartments.
Yep.
And so I guess in that sense it is passive to them, because really they don't run it. It's the this
right.
company
like
that
our
runs
friend
it.
our friend is signed in, has an account, it's through his account,
right.
but he's using the inventory to
right. But and I guess that's one way to do it, but then you don't make as much money
you're paying
if
out.
you do the money yourself. I'd love to kind of hear from people. I mean, we really encourage people that are listening to go to our blog at shampooandbooze.com and to leave a comment, because part of this is like we want to kind of learn from other people.
Yeah.
Like how much, if you use one of those management companies, how much do they take? And what is your experience with that? Like, are you making 40%, 60% of the income?
Because in our area there have been cabin rentals for a long time. And there's one management company, there might be several, but there's one that I know of. And if you're a passive owner, you have a house, you don't want to think about it, you don't do the cleaning, you do nothing, they take 25% for bookings. And then how much do they take for cleaning it?
And then it's like $50 or $70 to
each time
to clean the place. So
So if you have a 2-night turnover, I mean, you're paying them most of the money.
Well, almost half.
Yeah.
But then I guess if they are rent it for a week, the cleaning fee is actually smaller than what you get. But yeah, it's just a different model for sure.
That's definitely passive.
But it's for us. This is kind of the cool life. I always dreamed of having a life where we could be traveling.
Right.
But money is still being made other places.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I mean, it definitely takes some juggling. Like it's not like with eBay, we change our handling time and we have to message people right away because they don't notice the handling time.
But
but that's pretty easy.
But if you think
phone,
about comparing to being stuck in a place and working 8 hours a day in an office, it's much different.
No, absolutely.
You're walking down the street and be like, hang on a second, send a message. All right, let's keep walking down this canal.
No,
it's like
I know. I think I forget that sometimes.
Yeah, it's good to be grateful.
Yeah, I know. You tell me that all the time.
Yeah.
You got to be grateful. You're sitting here in Amsterdam, you snob.
Yep. So we just wanted to quickly go over what's been happening this week in our Airbnb business. So we have this farmhouse. It's rented every day. It's this week except for one a night.
Right, which is great.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
September, it's booked most of next week too, but the end of the month we still have a lot of empty days. And that's been our struggle, is just making sure we can fill the weekdays.
Right.
Our weekends always get booked. It's the weekdays, and and it's been good so far, but that's the challenge.
Yeah, that's the challenge, and part of that, having these online businesses, is you really don't have any control besides good photos, good description, a good listing on eBay and Airbnb, and then you just hope people come.
Right.
So that's part of it. You're like, okay, there's time at the end of September that's not booked.
Right.
What do you do?
And we've been going back and forth in different ideas of how to handle this. At first, I started to bring our prices down.
Right.
As time got closer, hoping that the cheaper prices might attract people. But now we're going to do an experiment where we're just going to keep our prices just the exact same, but just see if people will naturally just book at the last minute.
Now, we were talking to someone the other day in our area, and they noticed too that if you have a nice place that people like to go to and their schedule is flexible, a lot of times they'll just look at your calendar and say, all right, we're going to come those 2 nights, which is incredible.
But I noticed that Airbnb has its pricing tool where they, where you can turn it on the calendar and it
the suggestion tool
shows you what prices you should charge to have maximum, and the prices are all over the place. Like if this day's like $129, this day's $215, and it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from people if they actually go by that, if they just say, because you can say, okay, go for it, and it just automatically changes all the prices where it's all over the place like that. As a renter, I would be kind of weirded out if I'm trying to rent a place and it's like, and I'm trying to rent like, it's 4 evenings in a row, and one night's 112 and another night's 225.
Like, why is it like
I'd
that?
just be like, give me one price.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think it really depends on what type of area you're in. Like, if you're in New York City, I'm sure it's like based on your competition or whatever.
Well, I mean, I think it's true everywhere. I mean,
yeah, but what I'm saying is New York has way more listings than ours. And different events happening, and we live out in the country, so I feel like that suggestion tool is not applicable.
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely don't have as many places on Airbnb in our area as like it's Manhattan, but I do wonder where they're getting the info from. Like, is it just being compared to it's 40 other places in our area, or are they pulling info from elsewhere? And they don't really tell you, so it's hard to know if it's at something that we should trust or if it's just,
The other thing, too, that
junk.
I find funny is I was talking to this other cabin rental place, and I looked at his website, and he's not on Airbnb, but the way they priced it was, it didn't matter what day of week it was, it just mattered how many days you wanted. They were like, because he was asking me, well, how much do you charge for 2 nights? And I was like, well, it depends on what 2 nights. He's like, what? So I went on his website. He's like, 2 nights is this much. 3 nights is this much. 4 nights is this much. It would be interesting to me if Airbnb would allow that, like give greater discounts as, you know what I mean?
They do have, I don't
know. They have a weekly discount.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a weekly, or if you could make its discount for any number of days. I think it could just be a week and a month. Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is it's a different type of pricing where you're like, it doesn't matter if it's a Wednesday and Thursday, I still want to charge this for 2 nights. But then I guess that would mean just put the same price for every night.
Right. Exactly.
All the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I thought that was interesting. I had never even thought of that since we use Airbnb as a baseline. We're like, well, Fridays and Saturdays are the most expensive,
Well, I mean, so I'm sure other people that run Airbnbs do exactly what I'm about to talk about, and that is looking at your looking at other people that are renting in your area. Yeah. I mean, number one is, how can you not? Like, that's just total.
It's right in your face.
Curiosity.
Yeah, you have to.
But the other thing is, when we were new too, we just wanted to see what other people were.
What they were charging.
I wanted to see how booked they are. I mean, that's the thing I love. And it's why we love on eBay, too, is that there's transparency of info.
Yes.
Like on eBay, you can look under sold items. So if you have an item you want to actually sell, you can look under sold items from highest to lowest and see, here's the average price of what this thing sells for. And then that helps you price it's your own item. I like Airbnb, too, because I can go through and look at everyone's stuff and check out their calendar and look and see how booked they are.
And
it's great.
For us, that's really helpful because if we have vacancies, we're like, is it just us? Like, is everyone booked up this month, or are people having trouble booking this X week?
Right.
And we're like, okay, so maybe that's a week where...
And so people who are more booked than others, we're like, is it because their price is better?
Right.
Is it because they're offering some amenity that...
Like they have a hot tub and they're on the river.
Or they're on the mountain. Yeah, or something like that. So we look at... But what also I see is... kind of like we were talking about earlier when we go to other people's Airbnbs, is I learn from people doing it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
What I also do is I read what people who are staying there say.
The reviews, yeah.
I love that.
Oh, I if it's late at night and Jay's asleep and I'm like, I'm so bored right now, I will go through, everyone in our area, read every review, because I'm just like, what do they say? Right. How do I improve my place based on what other people needed somewhere else?
And, the one thing I pull away from those experiences is that the key is don't overpromise and underdeliver. That seems to be...
Don't do those
when
things.
There's a negative... When someone leaves a negative thing on...
Or a neutral, like, this was a problem.
It's always like this. I came... And I thought we were going to have a secluded cabin from the pictures but when we were at the cabin, there's a house right next door. And and that basically colored their whole experience. Even if it was fine, the house is fine, that person overpromised because they weren't totally transparent
like,
in what happened.
Look at our house with a picture of the neighbor's house next door, or in the description, hey, we have neighbors.
Right.
I
mean, the other thing too is I find this with especially people who are new to Airbnb hosting. They'll often say things like they'll offer breakfast, because I don't know, they feel like they need to offer breakfast, or they have a fantasy like of a hospitality fantasy
of an innkeeper
or something,
an old-fashioned innkeeper.
But then you're setting the expectation, like people are like, okay, we're getting breakfast, and then I will read where people are like, well, we were promised breakfast, and it was like, a bun or something, or
it was a snack,
or the owner just had some eggs and some bread that we had to cook. Their expectations was different than what the owner.
I know exactly
promised.
which house you're talking about. I read that same review where they're like, and so he delivered some cereal at 1 p.m.
Right.
I'm like, oh God, dude.
There was like some yogurt in the fridge. So, I mean, again, it's one of those things that we've learned is that we never say anything in our description that we can't deliver. And I think if anything, we underpromise.
Yes.
We don't, we only say what we know we can offer, and what we hope is when people show up, and I think this is true, people are more wowed because it's nicer, or it's quieter, or it's more secluded
than they thought.
Exactly. And that's always makes me feel good.
Not that you don't want to say those things, like it's private, it's quiet. People are like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's the country, and you're like, no, it's real. Like, we have an open Wi-Fi network that has no password, and people are like, what do you mean you don't have a password? I'm like, look around, there's nobody here.
People love that too.
They
love the openness.
It's fun.
I mean, the other thing too is like the kitchen. For us, I think we seem to attract the kind of renters that come for a week, and they want to cook because they have like a family, and we have a full kitchen. And I notice that too sometimes when I'm reading people's places. People are like, yeah, the kitchen didn't really have enough pots and pans. There weren't enough plates.
There was no oil. There was no salt and pepper.
There wasn't like
stuff like that.
It wasn't a sharp knife in the whole place. So it's kind of like if you're going to have a kitchen, you might as well kit it out to where it's a real where you could. We decided to have a kitchen that someone could cook a Thanksgiving dinner if they wanted to.
Exactly. And the reason for that is because that's what we want. We don't cook Thanksgiving dinner at people's houses, but like today, you cooked up some stir fry, you made some rice. We did finally find a sharp knife. It was harder to find, but someone rented our place for Thanksgiving.
Right.
So obviously we're going to ask, are you cooking? Is there anything special you need?
Sure.
You need a roasting pan,
things
like that.
Beyond that, when there's a family that stays for a week, I mean, they're cooking for 5 to 6 people.
Yeah, they're making breakfast.
And they're going out to the grill, and they're grilling up big things of ribs, and they're making mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
When I say Thanksgiving dinner, I just mean a full dinner.
Big meal.
It doesn't have to actually be a turkey, but you're cooking for 6 to 7 people.
And honestly, what we did this twice, where I invited my mom and my sister came down, and I had to be like, tell me what we need. What are we missing? Because my mom loves to cook. So we were making breakfast. We were making, dinner there. We were just hanging out there for like 3 days. She's like, you need a spatula. You need more serving dishes to like put rice and chicken in, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even, because at my house I have all that stuff.
Right.
But at this house I'm like, oh yeah, we need serving spoons.
Well, I mean, that being said too, even more simple is before we had rented it, we stayed in our own place.
We did, yeah.
For a couple of weekends and just stay there and just to see what we...
Like, what are we missing here?
Oh, because I wonder too if everyone who rents on Airbnb, if they actually stay in their own place, or even if they rent a room in their own house, if they sleep in that...
If they've, looked at it.
Its room and feel like, oh, I would feel comfortable here. Or ooh, I feel like I'm
missing this.
I feel like I'm being crammed into like,
right.
Too small of a room, or there isn't enough stuff here.
Or I need an extra blanket because it got cold in here or whatever.
Or this bed is really uncomfortable.
It's super important to know that because having a comfortable bed, number one.
Yeah.
There was something that we have these charger like outlets. What do you call them? Like power surge outlet things by the beds. Because we want people to be able to charge their phones. Like, that's our biggest pet peeve at a hotel or whatever. You're like, I put my phone right next to my head.
I want my phone right by me in bed because, it's often my alarm clock.
My alarm clock.
Or I like to wake up in the middle of the night and look at my phone.
Right.
And so I want it to charge.
So these ones that we have, they have regular plugs and they have USB plugs. There's this tiny blue LED light on each one. Mm. And my sister and I were, like, sleeping in the guest bed. It's like a trundle bed, so it's actually a king-size bed. I could not get to sleep because I could just see that the light was so bright. It's the tiniest little LED. But in the dark, it was like it was like a night light. Right. So me sleeping in there was huge because I was like, I'm covering that up with tape right now on both of them. And, and I also noticed, because we live in the country, it's so quiet. I couldn't get to sleep. So we put white noise machines in every bedroom because
just in case
other people live in the city and they I can't sleep without one. So stuff like that is really good for experiencing your own house as a guest. I think is incredibly important.
And then just to wrap this up, right before we left and kind of handed over our place to our friend who's going to take care of it for the next 3 weeks, we went to the store to buy stuff for the house. And
to make sure he would have it when
Right, yeah, I mean, we bought, toilet paper and soap and sponges, those kind of things that anyone would expect. But we did talk about how we try to offer amenities, just like extra things that we don't even really mention in the description because, I hate the descriptions that are too long. Yeah. But, we offer things like coffee and tea and sugar and creamer and condiments and
Q-tips.
You
love that.
Ear wipe things, Q-tips, and we spent, $65 on a bunch of stuff, but it's going to last us 2 months.
Oh, it'll last several. Some of that stuff lasts even longer than that.
Because many people don't even touch any of it, but some
people do. Yeah, and like there's some more expensive things that are super worth it, like makeup removal wipes.
Right.
That right there, anyone who runs an Airbnb knows. Makeup on towels, makeup on linens could be a whole podcast.
So is that normal for a woman to go to sleep with makeup on, or is that?
I don't think it's normal, but I think it happens after a night of drinking at a wedding.
Yeah.
The bachelorette party we had was one of our first renters. It was like 8 bachelorettes or more. I have no idea. Makeup. I had to throw some, I'm obsessive cleaner. I can get anything out now. I had to throw some shit away. Right. I was like, what? This is super stained. So, I don't know because I don't wear makeup. So I don't know what the norms for women taking makeup off. But I do know if you don't have your normal makeup stuff, and you have a white towel and you put mascara on, that stuff is not coming out. Yeah. Unless you're like a professional launderer. Yeah.
So we like to buy amenities. And really, if you think about it, it's less than 1% of our profits.
It's tiny.
Cost of, cleaning percent. So, if we spend $65, but we're making $5,000
a month.
It's
a joke.
And I think that $65 is actually for 2 months. So really, you're thinking like $30-something
maximum
a month. So it's easily not even 1%. But again, those little things for me is what always puts me over the top in enjoying a place.
Yes.
Like if I can show up somewhere and there's like a thing of coffee, I'm like,
you're gold.
It's like I'm gonna make like 3 pots of coffee, but I'm so over the moon because I didn't have to go buy a pound of coffee to make. And,
And here's the thing about amenities too. I swear we mention amenities every time because we're like, it's so important. But people will mention them in your reviews. Right. That's how much they appreciate them. They mention the exact amenities. we were so happy they had bug spray.
Right.
That cost me $1.
Right.
You know?
Like
it's just so silly.
Like I put charcoal out. You know, and I mean, charcoal's cheap. It's expensive. Like $8 for a big bag. But I find like most people just use not even a quarter of the bag, and they're like, "Oh, this is so awesome," you know.
Yeah,
like,
they appreciate it.
I didn't have to go and buy it extra and spend an hour going to the store and come back.
Right.
Like, it's here. I threw on some steaks, and I'm good to go.
And a lot of times too, if people are there for a week or so, they'll go grab another bag. Like they're not going to just leave it empty.
Very true.
I've noticed people will refill stuff.
Some people will.
Some people won't.
Some people, I mean, some people won't. They'll just, they'll just use it up, and that's fine.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't expect people to do it, but some people are very cool, and they'll leave. They'll buy an extra bag or whatever.
Like I remember someone was like, "Oh, there wasn't enough salt."
Right.
Like we used up all the salt in the container, and they like bought a tub, which cost like 75 cents at the store. So we were like, "Thanks, that's so nice," you know.
Cool. So thanks for, being on one of our first podcasts here. Joining us.
Under 10 podcasts have been made on this website.
Yeah. But, if anything we've said kind of strikes your fancy, you can go over to shampooandbooze.com, leave a comment, or, ask a question. We'd love to hear from you. You can also find us on YouTube and iTunes. You can subscribe to us there. You can send us an email, shampooandbooze@gmail.com. Yeah, and also on the sidebar, you can actually put your email in there, and it will subscribe you, so whenever we do a new post, it will email you its newest post. And it's just through Blogger. We aren't harvesting emails. No, it's just, we don't do anything with those. Yeah. So, see you next time. Bye. Bye.